Ladies and germs, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children and babies, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast, the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. I'm your marble mouth host, Devin Morgan, directly baseball Driveline, founder of Driveline Academy, joined as per usual by my brother, my partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy assistant director, Driveline Academy International Man of Mystery, Jeremy Techteal. In the words of Sean Carter, guess who's Bizak? Anybody remember that one?
I was wondering if you were going to stumble through the opening a little bit more than you used to, because it's a little bit of rust on it.
It's been a while. I didn't even do like the anxiety thing where I just like will talk to myself in the car on the way down here. So yeah, we're here. I mean, we've done this enough times, nearing 150,000 listens. Thank you guys for tuning in as per usual, and we apologize for keeping you waiting. In the spirit of efficiency, let's get through housekeeping quickly. Axbat.com, code DL20 will get yourself 20% off of bats and bat type things at Axbat.com. We keep getting notifications about you guys making those purchases because we get notified when you do. That money goes directly into our scholarship fund. It is hugely appreciated. It's the season for it. Axbat has some new bats as well. One of them that like my son might be in love with. So kudos to me. I might have to be buying a third baseball bat this year. You can do the math on what that's cost. So yeah, axbat.com, code DL20, as in dingus longitudinal 20, get yourself 20% off.
Luckily, you've bought 3 bats this year, but you keep using the code, so you're helping out our scholarship.
I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. Skills to Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual right up above Jeremy's head there. It's got hitting stuff. It's got throwing stuff. It's got strength and athleticism development stuff. It's got information on coaching your team, building relationships with athletes, recruiting parent volunteers, laying out an entire calendar year of stuff. Video drill library, game library, long-term athletic development library, dynamic warm-up library, our yearly training plan. It's got just all of the stuff that you need to be able to run a developmentally positive experience for you and your child, or your child and their team. It's just like the whole kit and caboodle. It's everything you can throw at the problem. And you can find it at drivelinebaseball.com, Skills to Scale Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual. The other stuff, the Youth Power Bat, the Youth Underload Smash Bat, they're good. Your player wants to develop bat speed, so you should buy the Power Bat. Your player wants to develop bat speed and barrel accuracy, you should buy the Youth Underload Smash Bat. If you want to do both of those things at the same time, buy them both, and you can do both of them for like 2/3 of what you would cost to get like an actual BB Court game bat.
Right.
Power Bat's $99. Youth Underload Smash is $79. These are really easy to implement tools for whatever you're doing. Doesn't have to be super complicated to get better. What else was I just going to say? A couple people recently that have been buying them and been asking me, can you use them to hit regular baseballs? And the answer is yes. Don't do it off a machine. Machine with these type of training bats is not great, but like live arm, side soft, front flips, or you're hitting plyos, mini hitting plyos, smash factor balls, all of that stuff is all good to go. You just don't want to do it with regular baseballs off of a machine.
Smashies from a machine is fine though.
Smashes with the machine is fine, and it's a great way for you to be able to increase the task difficulty, ramp up the velocity, and then have kids be in there and actually be able to get off their A-swings because they're not terrified that their thumbs blown off, because those smash factor balls are going to save you from doing that. Okay. Housekeeping complete, finite.
House is kept.
Man, we got a whole bunch of stuff to cover. A whole bunch of stuff. One of those things that I should actually attach to the end of housekeeping before we get into the meat of these things is I've asked a couple times about 28-inch power bats. Some of you guys have emailed me and said, hey, I have a younger player who's currently swinging like a 27 or a 28. Is the 30 appropriate? My question to you, how many of you guys are looking for bat speed training for a kid that are swinging like a 27 or a 28-inch bat right now? If we get enough people that say yes, we're just going to do a limited run of them. So if that's a thing that you're passionate about and you want a speed training bat system for your younger player that's not like preposterously overweighted like the competitor for our power bat, hit me up, Devin at drivelinebaseball.com, 2 E's. Okay. As fans of the show know, I don't give Jeremy any type of like warning for what we're going to talk about. And man, we got a number of different jump off points. I want to talk about Willie Mays, and I also want to talk about the quotes that Reggie Jackson had at the same time, because I think it bears out in youth baseball. I want to talk about some of the horrific abuse stories that we've gotten about pitcher abuse already in the summertime. And like, I don't want this to turn into like the if it bleeds, it leads type of like content. But the reality is that this is something that continues to go on. It's continuing to open up the door for kids to get hurt and everything else that's like in the world. I want to talk a little bit about some stuff about like bad coaching. There may or may not be a guy who's like somehow tacitly endorsed by MLB who's just got like terrible takes on hitting and throwing instruction. And we're the most most dangerous youth baseball podcast. Of course, I'm going to call that out.
Yep.
And I think there's this other conversation that we want to have about what is going on with collegiate baseball right now in the portal. I think we should just have that as like the last thing. And if we talk about that, we cover that today, that's fine. I think it might end up having to be its own episode, because the long and short story of is, I think for a lot of you guys who have high school age kids or even 13 to 14 are kind of on that path to play college baseball, you probably need to wrap your head around the fact that JUCO is just kind of turning into the minor leagues.
Yeah. Like
the power fours, that whole ecosystem is real wild right now. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, as long as the portal's around.
No. But it's I'll call it learned behavior a little bit.
Sure.
And we can save this for another podcast, but if you are someone who's a parent who is sitting there and like, this transfer portal thing is crazy. Like, these kids are leaving schools one year after another.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Well, then don't take your kid from travel team to travel team year after year, hoping for just like a better result, right? Like if on the one hand you think like, hey, you committed to this coach in this school, like stick it out the 4 years and see what that looks like on the other end, then you can't be the person who's taking your kid from travel org to travel org.
Talk to him.
And like, I think there's like a really clear line that is drawn here of like the behavior that kids learn from a young age of what their parents do in youth sports. And then they get to college and, hey, my freshman year was tough. I didn't get as much playing time as I wanted to. And sure, the coach told me it was because of XYZ, but like, I can just leave and go to another coach. And then my sophomore year, the same thing happens. And then now you're a senior, you've played at 3 or 4 different programs. You've gotten a lot of feedback from coaches on what you need to work on. And your answer to all of that has been to just find another situation. And it starts somewhere, and it didn't start with college baseball.
Correct.
But we can save that for another episode.
Yeah, I think that's just, I mean, we've got enough to get through here that I think we're probably going to end up punting on that for this one. So instead, let's start with the Willie Mays thing. Willie Mays passed away, arguably greatest baseball player of all time. I mean, you're in the conversation of top 3, top 5, or whatever, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the argument is like, it's him or his godson.
Yeah. Yep.
So like, I don't, it's hard for me to hear any arguments that's not one of those two.
Yep. And amidst all that stuff going on with Willie passing away, I've digested a lot of Willie Mays content broadly, but I certainly did a lot over the course of like that week or so. Somebody had the first time ever actually that Willie Mays and Vin Scully met. And they met in the broadcaster's room at Dodger Stadium, and Willie Mays and Vin are talking about like, everybody remembers the catch, but Vin had like another play that Willie made that like it was his one. You see these two men who are
octogenarians.
Old people,
like, 80 plus, baby.
Like legit old people, reminiscing on very like minute, neat details of a play in baseball. And it's just like, man, to have that type of mind and love and affection for the game, to be able to remember that type of stuff. And you just talking about two guys who, on the announcing side and then on the playing side, just, pillars.
Yeah. And, the joy and energy that he always played with no matter what was happening around him, right? Like it was I feel like the catch is the thing that everyone like the image, if you will, that there was like talk of like, let's make that the MLB logo, which I am full in on. Like, if we want to make that the logo, I'm full in on.
I'm in. We'll give it the Jerry West.
But like the picture, like honestly, there's a picture I think of every time I think of Willie Mays, and it's like him playing stickball in the streets of New York with kids.
I know the
right,
picture.
And it's like, yeah, man, could you imagine a big leaguer doing that nowadays?
Yeah,
just rolling up to a park,
and
like getting on the field and be like, yeah, I'm gonna mess around with kids and play some stickball, and like that. I wish we had more of that.
Yeah, I have a picture of Ernie Banks in my house. Not the biggest Cubs guy, but I have a picture of Ernie Banks in the dugout next to his dad. And from what I understand, they didn't have the greatest relationship, but like bonded over baseball. And both of them just have like the most wonderful smiles. And like, and that's the thing, you know, I say, hey kid, Willie Mays, you're talking about people who played this game with just such a joy.
And honestly, had no right to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially at the time, which
or what I should say is they had every right to not play the game with joy. Not they had no right to play it with joy, but like the ability to find the joy to play with.
Yep.
When that's what you get every time you're not on a field in between the lines. And even when you are on the field in between the lines, you're hearing it from the stands. Like they could have made every choice not, and there were a lot of people that played their contemporaries who made those choices, right? And like you can't fault them for it.
Yep.
But they never did that thing.
So let's talk about it, right? So MLB had a game that was at Rickwood Field, which was I think it's the oldest ballpark in the United States. It's still standing, and it also was the ballpark that Reggie Jackson played when he was coming up as like a AA player. Yeah, if I remember correctly. And I think to me, you know, when I think about the difference between Willie Mays and Reggie Jackson, like I didn't grow up with Willie Mays. I grew up with Reggie Jackson. Like my mom tells, hi mom. My mom tells a famous story of like my mom and two of my uncles in the basement of my grandparents' home that I kind of grew up in watching the 77 World Series. And I'm born in May. So this is like October, October 77.
Yeah.
And like, you know, my mom's got me.
Someone earned a moniker that month.
Yeah. And like, and I'm like brand new baby and I'm like falling asleep. And then something would happen. And like my mom and my uncle start screaming.
So if you were like 6 months later, you could have been Reggie Morgan.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll ask you about that one, Mom. So, you know,
for me, that was Barry Bonds, by the way.
Right.
Like so my age, that was Barry Bonds.
Right.
But I grew up, my grandmother, you don't listen to the podcast. There's no way you could figure out YouTube, but I love you. Speaking of octogenarians, grew up like a really big Brooklyn Dodger fan.
Yeah.
Was never an LA Dodger fan because she was very upset that they moved. But if you're a Brooklyn Dodger fan at that time, you hated Willie Mays, or you should have, right?
Yep.
And like the way she would talk about Willie Mays was just like with this reverence.
Yeah.
And like she was a Dodger fan, and most of my family, immediate family around her, were Yankee fans. Mm-hmm. So like no matter who they were, they hated the Giants.
Yep.
And like I heard them speak plenty of bad words about other Giants players, Bobby Thompson.
Sure. Yeah.
Bobby Thompson got it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like never once a negative thing about Willie Mays. There was just like something that you can't even find anything negative about it. Great HBO documentary about Willie Mays. If you haven't watched it, you should go watch it.
So I think it's interesting, you know, we think about guys like Mays and Reggie Jackson and Barry Bonds as like, it's this kind of like milestone in everybody's life, you know, like you grow up with one of those guys.
Yeah.
And you know,
well, mine was either Bonds or Griffey. But...
Sure, right. I mean, we had the luxury of that era of kind of having two. And I think because of that, sometimes you think about this framing of like the difference between the time that Willie Mays played and the time that Reggie Jackson played is like fairly separate, right? And we think about what you just kind of intimated, like Reggie Jackson and Ernie Banks having to go through just like rampant, abundant, overt racism.
Yeah.
Right, like that was the era of the time
within your own clubhouse.
Yes,
not like you're hearing it from the fans. You're like you can't say at certain hotels, and then like within your own clubhouse, you're also hearing it.
Right, and you know we think about that as like a very specific window of time, right? We think about you know the Jackie Robinsons and the Ernie Banks and the Willie Mays, the Lou Brocks of the world who like broke through And then it's like
Larry Doby. We got it.
I'm sorry, Larry Doby.
Can't not mention Larry.
We think about that, and then it's like, oh, well, Reggie Jackson, they're like kind of a different era. However, so when Reggie Jackson was interviewed by favorite of our pod,
I was just gonna say he was sitting there
and he teed him up. A-Rod teed up the question to him, and when Reggie Jackson was kind of asked about that experience and like what it meant for him to come back to Rickwood Park, it wasn't like this. Oh, it's so great to kind of be back at the start of my journey and blah blah blah. Like the thing that he pointed to was just again like outright and overt racism in terms of that experience. So the quote that he had. And again, wholly implore anybody to hear the whole thing.
It's like 4 minutes.
Probably. Yeah, it's about if you want to understand the truth of our society's relationship with minority baseball players in this specific window of time, the guys that are experiencing that are still here.
They're still here.
They're still here. And again, the point that I'm trying to make is like the difference between Willie Mays making the catch and Reggie Jackson in this experience at Rickwood in 1967 wasn't like night and day different, right? It just wasn't. So the quote is, the racism when I played here, the difficulty of going through different places where we traveled. Fortunately, I had a manager and players on the team that helped me go through it, but I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Had it not been for my white friends and had not been for the white manager, John McNamara and Joe Rudy, Raleigh Fingers and Dave Duncan and Lee Myers, I would have never made it, said Jackson. I was too physically violent. I was ready to physically fight someone. I would have gotten killed here because I would have beat someone's ass and you would have seen me in an oak tree somewhere. So, that's just our history. Like that is real American history that in this time, I think more than any other, we have to be real clear about the truth of what our country has done and how it was. And when you look at Major League rosters in 2024 and 2025, and I don't know that they've put out formal numbers this year, but last year it was the lowest percentage of African-American participation in Major League Baseball ever.
I want to say it was like 4%.
Yeah.
On opening day rosters, because that's they only count opening day rosters. But
yeah. It begs the question of why. And I think that's a question we have to ask ourselves in youth baseball specifically, because if you don't start in this game early, there aren't a ton of, who is that guy who is the center fielder for the Brewers?
Lorenzo Cain.
Lorenzo Cain picked up baseball in high school, if I remember correctly, and like late in high school.
I mean, probably not the guy to bring up right now because I don't know if he's hitting. I love him. I still love you. Always will. But I don't know if he's hitting his body weight. But Tim Anderson did not play baseball until high school, right? Like this guy, first round pick who was a major leaguer who had contracts and didn't play baseball until late in high school.
I think, when I think about the coaches' kids, like I think the reason that, people, talk about things like daddy ball, a lot of times is because you have a coach who's a dad, who's like us, who's like you, who's listening, who like baseball is part of the fabric of your life. And because of that, when you have a child, you introduce them to that and you get a chance to see if it takes or not. But then if it does take, you're the one who's always around to hit with them more, to play catch with them, to hit them ground balls, to like watch games. And you do all this stuff that like accumulates experience that compounds that kid's ability to just, I think, be good at the game.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's some amount of effect there.
Sure.
So I think the question is, okay, well, if this is what we have right now, we have the lowest percentage of minority and specific African-American population participation in Major League Baseball now. What do those numbers look like in college? What do those numbers look like in high school? What do they look like in youth baseball? Because if you don't start at the bottom of the stack and expand our game to more kids, why would you have any hope? Like the Lorenzo Cains and the Tim Andersons of the world, those are like outlier events, right?
Huge outlier events.
You need the other thing.
Yeah.
So the more that we go down this path of more and more economic impact to just participate in this game, which is going to color to a degree the socioeconomic sectors you can draw from. And that's just for like the equipment.
Yeah.
Right? Like just the equipment.
Yeah. I mean, so like the equipment, the cost of the equipment, I do think is one of the 3 biggest reasons probably that like we see a lack of, and not just Black, but
I think it's cross
urban, right? Like lower social economic backgrounds, because stickball used to be a thing. There's pictures of Willie Mays playing in the streets of New York.
Yep.
Now, how much are you paying for bats a year? You can't not have equipment.
I was going to do
basketball, football. You need a ball.
I was going to do that for next episode because in the last 12 months, 3 bats, and I'm not that with BB core bats. I'm not that guy. I'm not going like, oh well, this is the hottest bat on justbats.com this month. So let me go buy that and let me go buy another.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
I buy my kid 1 bat and he swings it until he wears it out.
Yep.
So I'm in 2 metal bats plus a wood bat because he's got an event this summer he needs to swing wood at. So let's just call that a grand easy.
He's got cleats and turfs.
Okay, cleats and turfs. 2 sets of turf already in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
2 sets of batting gloves. 3 sets of batting gloves in the last year. Catcher stuff. I think within the last year I bought him the A2000 catcher's gloves, so that's in there too. There's no way that I'm not into this for, let's say, at least $2,500 or more.
And that's before ever playing a game, which you then have to pay more to do that because now rec leagues are much harder and like they're falling apart, right? Like it's all like travel at this point. So like that, I do think is like one of the biggest reasons as to why we're seeing this participation drop. But like, if I had to pinpoint one thing, it is the lack of representation at the major league level that like, kids growing up want to emulate who they see on TV.
Yep.
They see a lot more. It's no secret that MLB has not done a quality job of getting their stars out there and doing publicity for their stars and like really leaning into that. Like there is just no reason that Mookie Betts shouldn't be a household name in this country. And he's just not. Like he is not. Shohei Ohtani, not really a household name at this point. And like that's
talking about phenomenal human beings with outlier skills,
right? With
2 completely different physiological presentations.
Who play with joy and are really good and like
also play for the right team.
And well, there you go. But like there are guys out there that we don't do a good enough job as a sport of getting behind and like putting out there enough. Whereas like, basketball is killing the game with social media with the kids, right? Like basketball, like the NBA actual like watching numbers on TV are like lower than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And they have so many young fans because they have which baseball should be so good at this, but like basketball has cornered we're going to post like, highlights, like highlight clips that the kids look at. And it's like baseball lends itself to that so well with just home runs or defensive plays or different types of pitches.
Have you seen this trend on TikTok where they take like highlights of like bums in the NBA and they just put together like a mixtape that's just fire?
No, I haven't seen it because I'm not on TikTok, but I do listen to Bill Simmons, and I assume that's the like this guy was a problem, right? Like there's those reels like. So Jason Williams was a problem, and everyone's like, "How was White Chocolate not like a Hall of Famer?" It's like, okay, he wasn't that good. Like he was fun to watch, but like
it's worse than that. So for anybody that doesn't know, world's biggest Tracy McGrady fan.
Okay,
McGrady was my guy.
Yeah.
I was lamenting with my best friends in our group chat, just like the audacity of McGrady's career, because when he was young, specifically before he got traded to the Rockets, he had no help.
No.
Like no help. Those Magic teams were terrible.
Yeah.
And for anybody that wants to step up and try to tell me that Doc Rivers is a great head coach, I will point you to his tenure in Orlando. So Bill Simmons, funny enough, did an article for Grantland, I think several years ago. It was right before McGrady retired. It was kind of talking about his teammates. And one of those teammates on that list was like Bob Sura, right? One-time Seattle Supersonic. And I'm talking to my guys and just like, Bob flipping Sura, fellas. Like, what are we talking about? It's Daryl Armstrong, Bob Sura, like Mike Miller. Like, it's just, it's Drew Gooden. It's just terrible. And then one of my buddies is like, yeah, but have you seen this highlight clip? 12 minutes of Bob Sura highlights. 12 minutes. Yeah. 12 minutes. Yeah. And like, man, I love the compounding effect of that on social media, because you're of high school age kids and plays basketball and you're built like Bob Sura and you stumble upon that clip, you can be like, man, I can do that.
I can do that.
I can do that.
Yeah. When you see yourself represented, when you see Mookie Betts, a 5 foot, I love you, Mookie. I'm not going to say the second number there. 5 foot something. Like that directly is like, I could do that. Right. Yeah, like it's not. And that is why as like a lot of people fall in love with baseball is there isn't one way to look.
It's the best thing about our game.
Right. There's not one way to be like basketball. Yeah. If you're not over 6 foot, at least and now it's basically, people talk about the velocity going up in baseball. The height requirements going up in the NBA too. Like there are not a whole lot of guys under 6'4" that are getting like regular playing time.
So I'm watching Kendrick Lamar's The Pop Out concert on Amazon, right? Okay. And DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook, were like on stage at the end. It's just hilarious.
Russell Westbrook now at this point one of the smaller guys in the NBA.
Right. And he towers over Kendrick. Uh-huh. He towers over Kendrick. He's way taller than YG. Like there's a lot of and these are just like small guards in the NBA that just are towering over normal people.
Right. Football, obviously, there's got to be like a physical body type for that. But like that's why you fall in love with baseball.
Yes.
And like me, I saw myself represented in Dustin Pedroia.
Hell yeah.
Right? Like
hell yeah.
That's probably my body type when I grow up. Like I could like I knew I wasn't going to make it, but like at least I can see representation of me on the field in someone. And like that's so important for so many reasons that and we just do a terrible job as a sport of that. And like now we're in the, I'll publicly lament. I'm a YouTube TV subscriber. I'm an MLB TV subscriber. I can't watch Mariners games.
Same boat.
That sucks. Julio, kind of cool. Kind of good at baseball. The pitching staff's pretty good. I'll stop there because we can't hit. But I did go to the game Saturday and we punched out 15 times. So that was tough. But if I'm in that boat, there's a lot of kids in Seattle area who are in that boat.
Yes.
And how are you supposed to grow up liking baseball if you can't watch baseball?
Yes.
Football, those games are on every Sunday.
Yep.
You can watch every Seahawks game and it's easy.
Yep.
And kids will fall in love with that and they see that and they want to do that. Well, I can't really bring up basketball around here, but like basketball always on national TV.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's Monday through Sunday, basically, there's some sort of basketball game on ABC, TNT, ESPN. Now we're getting into, I guess, like Amazon and NBC or whatever.
But they're talking about the NBA moving away from TNT, and there's like this national period of remorse that like Chuck, Kenny,
right? It's gonna suck, right?
That they won't be on the broadcast anymore. And that's how
even when the games aren't good, I watch it for the content because they're great.
So
then we got ours, which is 2, right? You have Saturday on Fox with John Smoltz.
Yep,
great. Talking about how much the game sucks at every inning, every pitch of every inning. And then we have Sunday Night Baseball, which like, okay, that's fine. But it's like really once a week, right? Yeah. Where and there was this big thing where like, oh, Sunday mornings are now Apple TV or whatever, Peacock, whatever it is. And it's like, we're just making deals to gate even more users from watching our game. And if we're gating everybody from watching the game and not great at utilizing the clip nature of baseball outside of Pitching Ninja, like this is where we're gonna lead into. We don't have enough examples for kids to see of representation that they can see in front of them of someone they look like having fun on a baseball field and performing well.
Representation matters.
And like, we can get into youth baseball stuff, and I would guess, I don't know, you could pull a lot of like black families and kids, but like my guess is, hey man, go to center field, right? Like in a lot of cases, you're probably just like shoehorning them into you're athletic, right? This is one of the things that I'm catching is my favorite position. I love catchers. There hasn't been a black catcher in the major leagues until this year.
Yeah.
Since Charles Johnson, who was like a Florida Marlins early 2000s catcher. 20 years with no black catcher. And like that doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
Like and it's not dissimilar from the way black quarterbacks used to be treated. And now we're slightly I mean, I would say slightly moving past that, because you still get every time Lamar throws a pick, it's like, should he be a wide receiver though?
Yeah,
like you still get that. But at least we're getting like better in terms of like more teams now have black quarterbacks and black offensive coordinators or things like that. And I think baseball hasn't gone there yet. And like Bo Naylor on the Indians this year. Oh, sorry, Guardians. Hey, I watch a lot of baseball, and baseball broadcasters do it all the time.
Yeah.
I just need to get in the habit of saying Cleveland.
The Cleveland team.
The Cleveland
Washington
team.
Football
the Washington Football Club. The Cleveland Baseball Club. The Utah Hockey Club, right? Isn't that what they're called now? Where was I there? Cleveland, like Bo Naylor is the first black catcher in the major leagues in like 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's like a handful in the minors now, which is awesome. And like we're just like behind other sports in that.
Yeah. So the point to me is just like, number one, you got to see the truth of this type of stuff that Reggie Jackson's talking about from his era. This is a recent thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a recent thing. Like the MLB article that summarized all this stuff notes, we don't often hear the stories of those who did not respond in such a way relative to relative to Jackie Robinson, who was, publicly applauded for kind of for turning the other cheek.
Yeah, for just taking it.
For just wearing it. So we don't often hear the stories of those who did not respond in such a way because they did not live to tell the tale. There were 4,743 documented lynchings in the United States from 1882 to 1968. 4,473. And that's the documented ones.
Right.
I think this is just something we need to be aware of in youth baseball. I think we need to do a better job of getting our sport accessible and playable by kids of all ages and places and types and socioeconomic backgrounds. And, look, I'm not using this as a springboard to like pat ourselves in the back, but I will note, the amount of scholarship money that we've given out over the last 4 years. A decent chunk of that is gone to kids from different socioeconomic or cultural backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. And the Hometown 9 program.
Yes.
That's
Mariners Hometown 9 program is kind of a similar initiative. I know that like a lot of other MLB teams have initiative in some way, shape, or form. The Royals have a great one. The Nats have a good one. The Dodgers have a good one. It's a little funny that they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can draw whatever conclusions from that, what you will, but in so much as I have the opportunity, and we have the opportunity to talk to you guys, and some of you are men and women that run coaches or run teams or run leagues or whatever. I would just encourage you strongly to take a look at the schools in your local area and take a look at the cultural composition of those schools. And if the kids that you see on the baseball field don't generally kind of like, look like the kids that are in your kids' classrooms, go to the school. You can do like a baseball club thing. It's a thing that you can do. It's a thing that you can do. We just need kids to be able to understand this game is fun and it's for them. And obviously there's something more systemic and, impactful at a top level that I think we need to solve. And I don't have the exact answer for that, but I
would always encourage two things. One, try to get the stories from the people. Yeah. Some of them are, I wish more, but a decent amount of them are still alive. And you can literally hear them telling the stories if you look hard enough. There's a lot of books out there that you can read. And like, I highly encourage going to the Negro Leagues Museum in Kansas City. It is an incredible museum. And like the extent to which a lot of baseball history that I grew up thinking had been, for lack of, I guess this is the best term, but whitewashed.
Yes.
Like hearing the stories from these guys themselves, like hearing Henry Aaron talk about how he hated being called Hank. And it didn't stop everyone from calling him Hank.
Yeah.
And like, that is not a thing really, unless you actually try to seek out the story from the source of who's telling it.
Yeah.
And like they're available. Go find that information. They were incredible. Like what they went through to play, and like the Negro Leagues itself. Like it was just an incredible venture that I know some people were a little hesitant because this summer, if you don't know, all of Negro League stats became real and incorporated with like Major League Baseball stats. So like Ty Cobb, which man, he must have rolled over in his grave like 70 times based on everything we've heard about Ty Cobb, but he's no longer the highest batting average in Major League history. Correct. He's now Josh Gibson, which honestly is like the sweetest piece of irony in the whole Ty Cobb story. But a lot of people were hesitant because they were different and they had to be different, and that league had to exist. Yeah. And like, if we allow the two to kind of be tied together and incorporated, are we going to enter a world where in 15 years, nobody realizes that it was segregated in the first place?
Right. Because
all the stats are in the same place, and the importance and the cultural significance of that league and at that time what it did for this country is kind of gone in a lot of ways. And I know there were a lot of people who had a decent amount of hesitation and like reticency about integrating the stats and everything. And because, what does that mean for this league that is so important and not just was, but is so important that are we going to, look up in 20 years and we're going to be calling the league Hank Aaron, even though the league was Henry.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. So do with that information what you will, but I don't know. You can't believe that this game is a great game and for everything it can teach, but then not extend that benefit to kids across a variety of different like socioeconomic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds. It's good for everybody. What's not good for anybody, Jeremy?
Arm abuse.
Hey, we actually don't practice this stuff.
No, but you did run down the list of things we were going to talk about, and that was the second one on the list.
So yeah,
I was surprised to hear that Willie Mays was the first one.
Yeah, I figured that one we'll get that.
Yeah.
Everything's terrible. Everything's terrible. Man, I just, I don't want to feel like I'm your local news guy who's like, hey, there was a 7-car pileup on the freeway and a school bus was there and it got torn in half by a meteor that fell down and then somebody dropped, acid on it. So we just created like 12 Jokers from the Batman movie. Like, I don't want to do that. However, okay, so let's talk about it. What did you guys send me? Some 10 and 12-year-old teams that have already played 90 games. That's great. How about a 2-day 4-team tournament? Which is, so this is the separate thing, right? And again, 2-day 4-team tournament. We're really stretching the boundaries. Like the word tournament
of
is
the
doing
word tournament.
A lot of work in that sentence.
That is a. You could just call it a round robin, right?
Yeah,
that's what that is. That's not a real tournament.
Okay, let me give you some pitching stats.
But I bet you they gave out some medals and trophies.
Sure, of course. One kid pitched. I think at least in 2 games, if not 3, 168 pitches over 8 1/3. Yeah, it gets worse. Another kid, same pitch count, 168 pitches over 5 2/3. That's tough.
Oh,
that's
my
tough.
God.
And that kid, courtesy of one of our dear listeners, thank you guys for sending me this stuff. Those 168 pitches and 5 2/3 innings were less than 24 hours apart. And weirdly, the kid was at least 10 to 15 miles an hour down from where he started at the end of it. So
10 to 15 miles down at 12U.
Yeah. So let's be generous and say that he was like mid 6s, right?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say let's be generous. And I was like, do we have to? But we're being generous to the kid. Let's be generous to the kid. Yeah, it's not his fault.
Let's say that he's like mid 6s at the start. So that means you go from like throwing mid 6s, so let's say 63, 65, and now you're like 51-ish. Couple things I will note. Number one, look, MLB Pitch Smart on their website lists throwing at a radar gun or using a radar gun as like an injury contributor.
You know what
presume
else is an injury contributor?
that
Having an arm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Waking up.
Yeah.
I truly understand what they're getting at, right? I do. I understand it. However, when we frame the conversation that way, we're just being really intentionally obtuse to the positive effect that tracking velocity can have on understanding arm health and diminished output. And like, man, the link is really clear. We don't really understand the exact mechanism of injury for youth kids. What we do understand is that like as fatigue goes up, injury risk goes up. And as fatigue goes up, mechanical consistency seems to go down. So what I understand, what I take from that is a pretty simple equation, which is kids have the best ability to throw with output and with sequence when they are fresh, utilizing as much of the kinetic chain and kinematic power development as they can when they're fresh. And as they get fatigued, their capacity to do that may get worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, you can monitor that in terms of watching for a kid's mechanics, I suppose, and you can ISOTO your way out of it, and like, good luck with that. But you could also just see on the gun when a kid is like on a Friday, 63, 65, and on Saturday, they're 51, 54, something ain't right.
Yeah. But he can still get outs though.
Yeah, because hitters stink.
We actually, this weekend, we did not have radar readings on Saturday.
That's right.
And that, I believe, is the first game we've played all season with no radar.
Yeah.
I struggled.
Yeah.
Because I look at the radars and see, like, hey, are we dipping?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's a thing I look at when I'm deciding how quickly I'm going to move to my next pitcher.
Yeah.
And like, all right, hey, inning ended. I'm going to go look at his velos from last inning, see if he maybe was starting to slow down by the end, or if I, like, am I going to start you next inning?
Yeah.
Should I not start you? Like, where? And I didn't have them.
Yeah.
And it was much more difficult.
Yeah. Here's another one. Shout out to Ivan, Driveline Arizona trainee, Ivan. Ivan, I hope that your last name is Pepe. If it's not Pep something, huge apologies if I screwed up your last name. We're just going to call you Ivan P. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sending this joyous note to me. Let's see. Let me actually just pull up Ivan's whole email here. 9-year-old. Nines.
Sure.
Kid throws in a tournament 5 games in a row at 9.
And that's probably a 2-day thing.
Yeah,
because they're 9. They're not playing Friday.
Yeah, two-day tournament, 5 games in a row, 187 pitches
total.
Well,
I mean, is it sad that I'm just like, well, at least he didn't start all 5 games then? Is that like, what does that say about the state that we're in?
I know. So if you've purchased the Skills to Skill Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual,
unlike that, coach.
Yeah, unlike that, coach. One of the things that you'll see in that book is data from a large-scale study that was conducted by, I think it was like the University of Texas. And they had like longitudinal trends on UCL reconstructions. And one of the things that they noted is, I don't show you guys the heel of my shoe because my wife said that some people interpret that as rude. So I'm going to switch legs.
By some people, was that I interpret that as like,
no,
she interprets it as kind of rude when you show her the heel.
Well, it's different cultures. Like, you're actually not supposed to do that. So I'm I can't spend all that time talking about the cultural sensitivity and reasons behind.
Oh yeah.
So
I'd have to go this way if I want to.
Yeah. Okay. And this way is a little tough on my hip, but I'll persist. The trend of UCL reconstructions just is going up and up and up. And I think it was like a 10-year study of like 2004 to 2014. Anybody that's bought the book, one of the nearly 800 of you can heat check me on this, or I could just get up and get it, but whatever. And that was in 2014. What happened right around 2014? Perfect Game had started just a few years before. And if you can heat check me if you've bought the book. If I remember correctly, the volume of games between the last year of that study in 2014 versus what they conducted in 2023, it was a growth of over 2,300%. Huge growth. And I'm not throwing that out there in an attempt to demonize PG. PG isn't the bad guy in this. They're the venue, right? They're the venue. And again, just the problem is when you have coaches that are running 9U, 10U, 12U games, and they're conducting themselves in this particular way, these are the outcomes we're just going to continue to get. And again, we've done a whole podcast about, my insane idea that we need to have an actual, ministry of sport in this country. And we need to have actual federal regulation to the way that people and coaches need to conduct themselves. And I'm not fooling myself. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. What can happen now is parents and coaches doing the other thing. Because I did get an email from another listener who was talking about how proud they were of their coach. They were in a tournament. They got into, I think, the semifinal or the final, and they're out of arms. And they walked. And I think you really got to wrap your head around the amount of social pressure involved with making that choice. Because it is not insignificant in any way, shape, or form. And I'll grant the fact that if I was a parent of a kid on that team, with everything that I know, that would be a tough decision to stomach. Mm-hmm. And it's even more tougher when you add money into the equation. Because, so again, if you're surprised that I'm going to bring this back to development, well, you haven't been listening long. But so long as the carrot on the end of the stick that we all chase after is plastic trophies, it's tournament wins that nobody cares about, it portends nothing for your child's future. Shout out to those of you who try to continue to dunk on that video that we did 9 months ago about 8U baseball and intentional walks. If I'm a coach who is trying to get another $1,000 check or $2,500 check or a $5,000 check from you, and I don't communicate anything developmentally, what's the last thing that I have to communicate as value? It's winning. Okay. I have to accumulate as much of that resource as possible as I need for you to give me another $1,000 check or a $2,500 check and a $5,000 check. Because that's the language that we speak. And we just speak that language. And that's it. And this is the cost. There are children that are paying the cost for this behavior. And it's not going to stop anytime soon.
No. And it's not, they are still children, but it's not just the 12 and unders, right? So I'll leave names and things out of it, but 2 weekends ago, we played an organization. We roughed up the pitcher a little bit in the first inning. Game, second inning starts. He throws 2 balls and then catches the ball back from the catcher, 2-0 count, looks a little wobbly, steps off the back of the mound, kind of still looks a little wobbly, and then comes set. And everyone's just kind of looking at why are you coming set?
Because he's not on the mound.
You're not even on the mound. You're 5 feet behind the mound in the grass. And everyone just kind of stared at him. And the umpire told the other coaches, can you go out and check on this kid? I don't know what I'm not a doctor. My assumption it was heat stroke. They had to carry him off the field because he couldn't walk on under his own power, couldn't walk off the field. And what the umpire told me was that I got within 3 feet of him and he felt like he was 130 degrees. So I'm assuming it was heat stroke, whatever. So they carried him off the field, replaced the pitcher, and we kept playing. He is on the bench now. His parents, and they're in the third base dugout. I'm coaching third, so I hear some of these interactions. The parents are wondering, should we take him to the hospital? The coaches are like, nah, he's fine. We have an ice pack in his pants, an ice pack in his jersey, and an ice pack on his forehead. Which, again, not a doctor.
Sure.
Fairly certain not how you cure heat stroke. Not a doctor, though. Second game now. And he just, by the end of that first game, he was sitting up and not just like laying on the bench, but like he was still with the ice packs and whatnot. Second game starts, and their second or third pitcher in the second game grabbing his shoulder and kind of looking towards the dugout, and they don't do a whole lot about it.
It's like the universal sign for like, I'm done.
Yep, and they don't do a lot about it. Pitches to the next batter, and he's still grabbing and looking out, and they're not doing anything. And finally, he just steps off the mound and like calls time and waves him out. And I can't hear the words that are said, but I see the body language and whatnot. And like, it seems relatively clear the coaches are trying to convince the kid to stay in the game. And the kid is trying to tell them, I cannot lift my arm above my shoulder. And they're telling him something along the lines of like, you got to stay in this game. Because what I found out immediately after that, when they did end up taking him out, they had used all their subs. So now we are down to 8 healthy players, and they're trying to convince this kid, you got to stay in the game and keep pitching because we don't want to take the automatic out every time through the lineup, and we have 9. He comes out of the game. So in order to not take the automatic out, we send this poor child with heat stroke out to right field for 3 innings. Now, at no point in this entire exchange did the coaches ask me if I was good to forfeit that game.
Yeah, it wasn't even part of the conversation.
Wasn't part of the conversation. They wanted to win the game, right? We beat them in game 1. They wanted to split the series. It was a league game. They wanted to split the series. And like there was no even remote suggestion of like even suspending play. Like, hey, we're down to 8 healthy players. Is there a way that like we could save this game for a couple weeks and pick it up here in the 4th inning or whatever it was? And so we played the game, and the kid was in right field.
Yeah.
And like, luckily, at least that day, nothing else happened, right? Like the kid didn't drop in right field.
Yeah.
He was on his feet the rest of the game. He was fine. But like, what are we doing? I was so dumbfounded by the whole thing. Because like, I'm not going to lie, there is a part of me that understands the tournament thing where we want to win every tournament. Like these are the things, this is what we tell parents, is that we're a tournament team that wins a bunch of tournaments. Like it is a hard pill to swallow to punch tournament games because you're trying to worry about the safety of your players or the injury risk of your players. This is like a league game.
Yeah. This
is a team in our league that, much like us, probably already stamped their tickets to the playoffs.
Yeah.
They don't need to split that series. They're probably going to make the playoffs anyways.
Yep.
They're basically not playing for anything. But still at that point, 2 different at least. And like, look, if 2 different kids' health didn't matter, not a single kid on that field's health mattered at that point.
Yep.
For a relatively meaningless league game.
Yeah.
And I just like, I was sitting there in that third base coaching box, kind of lost of like, this is where we're at, huh? That like, we're going to throw a kid who 2.5 hours ago had to be carried off the field.
Like legit carried.
2 coaches carried him. He could not walk off under his own power. And 2.5 hours later, he's in right field. Just, I think all of us, including their entire family, parents, dugout, coaches, we're just hoping the ball didn't get hit to right field. Yeah. And he didn't have to like actually attempt to make a play or run. Yeah. He just stood there for 3 innings, I think. Yeah. And I'm just like, what are we doing? If this is like a thing in a relatively meaningless league game.
I mean, even in the tournaments, right? You know, like we went.
But it's a little bit more understandable. Sure. I don't understand it, and it's never a choice I would make. But I can see the argument for why you would do that in a tournament game.
Yeah, but again, this is all driven by perspective and deliverable and value.
Yeah.
You know, like we went out and we did the Palouse Summer Series, which is played on the east side of the state of Washington for anybody that's not from here. It's a very different side of our state, right? And like, you know, it was, I don't think our team didn't do, I think, the way that we wanted it to do. I know that my son didn't have the weekend that he wanted to have. And, you know, it's a drive. It's a hike. It's an absolute hike out there. And on the way out, you know, it was me and my wife and my son because my daughter was sick at home. So we did that thing where it was just like we're playing different music that like is all important to us, right?
Mhm.
And I finally got my son to listen to Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. And like we're going through, so for anybody again that doesn't know, like the thing about the Palouse is like you have these just like these rolling hills of wheat.
I think that's what we decided in the car.
Be wheat.
It was wheat.
Shout out to anybody from Spokane or the Pullman side of things. If I'm entirely wrong about that being wheat, then you can just laugh at me for being a lifelong Washingtonian and not knowing.
Didn't
that.
we? It was. We Googled it. And it was
right?
wheat, right?
Yeah,
I think we Googled it. It was wheat.
So you have. So to kind of paint the picture, right? You have.
And we've never been more city people. Than being like, what is that? Is that wheat? What is that? Great.
Yeah, city folk.
The other thing that happened that weekend that is city folk is it rained on Saturday, and the opposing coach was like, I knew it was going to rain this morning because I heard the roosters growing nuts, and I was just like, I knew it was going to rain because I had to turn on my windshield wipers. Yeah, same. We're the same, man. We're the same.
So, got a chance to play Dark Side of the Moon for him in that type of like, you can't go anywhere. You're going to sit down and listen to this whole record. Yeah. We talked a lot about, the history of that record, and, some mental health issues that the lead singer was going through at the time. And, anyways, it's a big shocker. Dark Side of the Moon, great record. On the way back, again, you have the same way out, and weirdly my nav decided to take me up to like some dirt roads, unpaved, which is tight. And Danny's playing stuff from like his pregame playlist, and it's completely not what I expected. Like because I'm a big music guy, but like, when I'm gonna like get ready to go do talks, or when I'm getting ready to lift, like I listen to like intense stuff. Like I'm that idiot who's just like, I remember back in like 2018, like in like the pro retest days, guys just being there in like Swedish death metal, and it's just I'm that type of idiot, right? And Danny starts playing like his pregame music, and I'm like, this is so odd to me because it's like it's real chill and relaxed. And I was like, what is happening? So we're driving, and it's like, we're in the car for probably 6 hours total.
Yeah, it was a long drive.
And you're experiencing like this, just like this grand American vista. It's just like the whole sky is just like cotton candy clouds, and it's big, and it's blue, and it's open. And we didn't have a great weekend, and my son didn't have a great weekend. And we're going through this experience, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I understand the tournament thing. I understand the travel ball thing, because this part of the experience, being able to spend that time with my family, has so much value regardless of who gives a crap what happened between the lines. Like that stuff is on its own, and it's separate and needs to be handled separately. But this specific unique part of this experience.
And that's why we do one a year.
Yeah.
Is like we are both like of the understanding that like it's not really worth it to travel out of state for tournaments unless you're good enough to, and like you need different competition. Like you've exhausted your competition and you need new competition.
Yeah. Let's
go out of state. It's probably not. It's just like a waste of money. But like we do it because once a year is, and I would even say like maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
I think if you get more than 2 or 3 times, now you're starting to lose the value of that idea. Yeah. But like, those kind of bonding things are really important, and not just for the families, but for the kids,
man. So we're out at WSU, so they're just walking around on campus. And shout out to the people at the WSU campus that tolerated our little.
I was gonna say, don't incriminate them. Statute of limitations.
Yeah. Shout out to the WSU campus for letting all these kids go out there and just be kids on
lightly
college campus, and maybe some light dusting of trespass, but nothing got hurt or broken. And then last weekend, my kid got hurt in one of our games. And it's different, right? Like the whole acute injury is a very different thing to experience than like, well, my kid's just going to throw 168 pitches in 5 games. He's just going to pitch every game, right? Because you're not necessarily paying the piper now. Right. The surgeon, the ortho, is not like waiting at the third baseline who's like, hey, I'll see you after the game. We'll just go ahead and book the intake right now. Right. Let's start filling out the medical forms. That's not what it is. Right. It could be. It very well could be, and that's the place that we're going. And I don't know, man. It blows me away that in an environment where so many of our coaches are parents, that we have parents that are talking themselves into or doing the mental gymnastics about value proposition to continually exhibit this type of behavior. You know, it is just, it's so, because it has to start with us. It has to start with us. Yes, I want to see a national ministry of sport. It's not going to happen in the next 5 years. I would love to see mandatory pitch counts instituted across all forms of youth baseball, just like it is in like Baseball Ontario. Hey, guess what? The Canadians beat us. Canada is just better at this. I'd love to see that happen. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. In so much as I have an opportunity to advocate for that, we have another youth summit this year. I will, I'll do my thing. So it has to start with parents, because parents are the coaches most of the time. And if it's not that, then it is people who are professional coaches who should flip and know better.
Yes.
Who should flip and know better and should not be compelled by the economic possibility of winning to mitigate reasonable and logical concern about the health of a child. And it's so unbelievably sad that that's where we are. And it's so unbelievably sad that like the only mechanism of recourse that I have with the platform that we share is I have to tell you guys to like go talk to other parents and go talk to your coaches. And I suppose the only other thing there is that like to pull your kid off of a team if they behave that way. But it's tough. That shouldn't even be a thing you need to solve for.
That should not be a thing you need to solve for. And like, if you are in that spot where you're thinking about pulling a kid from a team because of arm abuse, but like you're sitting there, you're like, he really likes playing on this team. It's all of his friends. We really like the coach. Then like have a conversation with the coach.
Yeah.
Because if you really like them, they might be a reasonable person and might understand why you're telling them not to throw my kid that many pitches. And like, I've been with my kids for how many years?
Yeah.
And I still get them. And like some of it's now, they know the answers and they're just, being 15-year-olds who, well, I might as well ask the question. Like I know, but like I might as well, like there's no way that I could throw 100 pitches if I don't ask if I can throw 100 pitches. Like he's going to say no, but like, I'm going to shoot, right? I'm going to take my shot.
Yeah.
But like, I still get someone was like, why? Like, what's my pitch count today? You know exactly what your pitch count is.
And some of those kids, that's the thing that you kind of want. You want a kid who's a gamer, who's like, I want to,
what I tell them is, it is your job to want to throw 150 pitches. Mm-hmm. It is my job to tell you, nope, that's dumb. That's why I am here, is that like, I want you guys to go and play as hard as you can for as long as you can to the fullest extent of your possibilities. And I am here to make sure to put you in situations that you can do that exact thing as safely as possible.
Yeah. Right now we have too much of the former and not enough of the latter.
Yes.
Yeah. That's exactly where we are. Yeah, I don't have any grand revelation other than, if you're a parent out there, if you're a coach who's listening to this, man, consider your behavior. Consider talking to your coaches, consider running your team differently, because just like the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yes.
And this trend that we are already in the middle of is not going to fix itself overnight with all the other stuff that's in our ecosystem. Right. Like I don't even think I talked about this, but like, did you see that thing that was floating around about the 4U tournament for cash?
Oh my God.
Like
4U.
I mean, it was something like, it was something similarly stupid to that degree. And if I can find it here quickly, I will.
Never thought I'd see baseball being played in diapers.
I mean, yeah. Yep. That's where we are.
Pull-ups. I guess they're definitely out of diapers, but something might.
Yeah. You probably hopefully at the pull-up stage before. Yeah. Cash ball. 4U to 12U. First place, $1,000. Cash and championship shirts. Yeah. Yeah. Man, it's crazy to me that this is where we are, but this is in fact where we are.
This is in fact where we are. And if you feel like you agree with what we're saying, but like some combination of exposure,
Sure.
Or like this team has put other athletes in certain positions or whatever. I understand where you're coming from. So the Spokane tournament, one of the teams that was there with us from Seattle that we know quite well. After that weekend, we didn't even have games the next weekend, did we?
I don't think so.
I don't think we had any games the next weekend. We had a game the Tuesday after.
Yeah.
We had like a league game the Tuesday after. Yeah. But then like nothing else for the rest of the week. Let our kids recover, deload a little bit. That Thursday, so 3 days, they had a tournament. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., while school is still going on in Seattle.
That's right.
They're in Peoria, Arizona for a tournament in 107-degree weather, whatever it was in Arizona. And a lot of them are, well, we got to get the exposure. Ask your coach, if you're in that situation, who am I being exposed to? Do you have specific schools that are going to be there that I know and that I have heard of and that you have confirmation of? Because otherwise, exposure is just like a really nice buzzword for come down and play a tournament in Arizona. I can promise you there are very few college coaches going to these tournaments now.
Especially when they're in season with their college teams.
Well, that especially. But like, and I
Even
will
now.
double down on even fewer Power 5 Division I teams, which like most kids will tell you that's where they want to go.
Yeah.
Those schools, and again, me probably save this for another episode, but like those schools are getting kids from JUCO.
I mean, when you have
and they're getting kids from NAIA.
When you have 5,000 kids in the portal, guess what? No college coach worth their salt is actively considering, gee, do I want to think about investing time in evaluating like a 14 or a 15-year-old right now? Or do I have to sort through the 5,000 adults that are in the portal, have playing experience at the collegiate level already, and are physically superior to your 14 or 15-year-old child?
Right. And like going to a showcase is a choice that you make that you now can't see anybody else that weekend, as opposed to just looking at video online, which there is, everything is on video now.
Yep.
And so much can be done through video that like, if you find yourself doing things for the sake of quote unquote exposure, really ask some serious questions about like, what does that mean? Who are we being exposed to? What does that look like? And like, why is this more beneficial than me posting video from last weekend's tournament or me emailing a video package of hits from last week's tournament to a specific college coach that I'm interested in attending that college?
Yeah. You just gotta, the juice is not worth the squeeze, man.
No,
it just absolutely isn't.
But like that, to me, that's especially like we're talking about taking kids out of school for it too. Cause like you took Danny out of school for Pullman.
Yeah, to take him out for one day.
Right. For Friday. For Friday,
I take him out for half of the day on Thursday.
Half the day on Thursday and then Friday. Yeah. And like a bunch of my kids were still in school on Friday.
Yep.
A lot of them, a couple of them had just finished. A lot of them had moved finals to earlier in the week so that they could be gone on Friday. But like, you are actively, like if your whole goal is to get kids to play in college, which is what a lot of programs say.
I mean, they say it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, right. Like
Yeah,
if that's actually your stated goal, then you would care a little bit more about pulling them out of school multiple times. I felt terrible about pulling them out of school once. Yeah. And like we had a game we had 2 games on Friday, but the second game was later at night. So it was like, I made sure if anybody was still in school and like couldn't get out, that's fine. I'll see you Saturday. Like, do not come. I had one kid who drove all the way back to Seattle on Saturday for his sister's high school graduation because I wouldn't let him miss it, and then drove all the way back to Pullman the same day.
Insanity.
So like they left Pullman at 3 a.m, got back in time for the graduation. As soon as graduation was over, turned around and came back to our games, and we're at our 4 o'clock game on time. Insane commitment, and I'm thrilled to have them, that family, as a part of my team in this organization for that commitment. Alone, let alone all the other things they bring. But like, I felt terrible about him potentially missing his sister's graduation, let alone a day of school at the end of the year when you might have finals, And then we got teams out here that's like, hey, we're going to Arizona 5 weeks in a row, and like your kid's just gonna miss 10 days of school.
Yeah. Have you
minimum?
seen the Instagram video that's like the travel ball coach talking to the parents, and it's like, the coach is like, all right, so we're gonna go down to Arizona.
Is this the one who has like the fake belly?
No, not that guy.
I like that guy. That guy makes me laugh.
He's like, well, we're gonna go down to we're going to Arizona. We got a 2-day tournament. If we do well there, we're gonna catch a flight. We're gonna go to Guatemala. We got a 3-day. We got a showcase there, and 2 days in Guatemala for a tournament. If we do well, then we're gonna fly to Luxembourg. It's just like, it's all this preposterous travel, and
and like you are flying in the face of your stated goal if you're taking kids all over the country to play games.
Yeah.
If your actual goal is to get them to play in college, that's just no longer how you do it.
No. And look, if there are a handful of kids in this country who need to move around a little bit to see really, elite levels competition.
And there are.
Those kids are outliers for a reason. And like, my kid is not one of them right now. Most kids are not one of them right now. Like there's some kids out there that are just like highly, highly, highly advanced, and they need a highly specific environment, and that's fine. I think the thing that we've done is we just kind of presume that everybody has that same type of need.
Correct.
And we're overfit.
Correct.
It's
and
overfit.
Like I'm suggesting that our listeners go and find stories from Negro leagues and like, early integrated black baseball from the source of the stories.
Yeah.
Go and listen to big leaguers talk about their youth experience.
Yeah.
The vast majority of them will tell you how awful it was and how like it didn't actually get them to where they are. Like they got lucky to wind up where they are, but like they could have been like any number of kids they played with who burned out or got hurt or weren't massive genetic outliers. And like, then you got a guy like Paul Goldschmidt, right? Like who has a completely different story, or a lot of these guys that have like Mason Miller, we talked about not that long ago, right? Like those stories are becoming more and more common. And like, when I was younger, it always made no sense to me that it seemed like a big deal whenever someone made the major leagues and they had video footage of them having played in the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
Where like every time I felt like the Red Sox were in like a big nationally televised game when I was growing up, you're seeing videos of Jason Varitek in the Little League World Series, right?
Yeah.
Of like, and that's so cool. Like, look at him here to here. And it's like, how does that not happen more often?
Yeah. Weird that it doesn't.
Right. But like, as a kid, I was just like, wow, like, why doesn't that happen more often? These kids must be like so good.
Yeah.
How do they not make it more often? And like now with, experience and being an adult, I look at that like with very clear eyes of like, oh, there's a clear reason why that doesn't happen. Yeah. It's like the Little League World Series, these kids are 12.
Yeah.
And they're being taught that the most important thing is to play baseball every single weekend and practice every single day for a chance to go to Omaha.
Yep.
And win a relatively meaningless thing.
Well, I mean, look,
because that's what they see. Me as a 9-year-old is watching Danny Almonte in the Little League World Series at whatever he was 15, just throwing perfect game after perfect game. And I'm like, wow, I want to play in the Little League World Series, right? Right back to the representation talk.
Yeah. Yes.
I see these kids playing on ESPN and I want to do that. So now I tell my parents, I want to play on ESPN. Okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we got to go do this Little League All-Stars thing. Mm-hmm. And like now we've got a bunch of kids playing way too much baseball.
Yep.
Because what they want to be the guy they saw on TV. And it's like.
And again, to your point about big leaguers now, who's the poster child for like the modern, superstar who's really good when he was really young? It's Bryce Harper.
It's Bryce Harper. Right?
What did Bryce Harper do when he was 17?
Bryce
Harper got his GED
and went to college. Yeah.
Went to College of Southern Nevada in the SWAC to go play against grown men, not hit the travel circuit to go like do whatever every single weekend. And I suppose that was just during his college season. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush.
He did do that.
He did
that thing up until it was like, well, he's clearly too good for this thing anymore. So.
Yeah. And like, look, most kids aren't that.
Well, but and like that, I've heard this argument before too, right? Like, Bryce Harper had a couple teammates who are also relatively famous, Chris Bryant, Joey Gallo, like those kind of guys. And it's like, well, they all made it. Yeah, that's what you call an outlier.
Yeah.
Chris Bryant's dad was the coach. Must have been a really good coach. Must have done a pretty good job, right? Like they had some pretty good coaching. They had some dads who were invested, and like, is that your little league team? You got those kids on your team?
Do you have the body types of those kids on your team?
Yeah, Bryce Harper was thick, even at that age.
Yeah. I have something for your segment.
Oh, hit me. Let's go.
I do.
All right.
So, again, it's been a while since we did this. A couple weeks ago, the Dodgers were playing the Yankees.
Okay.
The game is 8-2, top 9.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a done deal, right?
Yeah. So,
the Yankees are basically done with like actual relievers. So, hey, we got to do that. We're just rolling over here, right? We got to do the position player thing. So Oswaldo Cabrera comes out, career third baseman, shortstop type of deal, right?
Yeah, he is straight up the
glove first.
Yeah, he's more of like he's a switch hitting bat who can play every single position outside of catcher,
right? Okay,
without being awful,
right?
So it's like, yeah, he doesn't really have position.
So
he started as an outfielder, I think.
And actually, now that I'm pulling it up, 5'11", 200.
Oh yeah, he's a 200-pound dude.
So again, when we're spending all this time flying kids all over the flipping country,
I mean, we could have talked about that too. There were some. I meant to bookmark them. I remember if I did, but I was talking to my kids about them because my kids saw them and I was so happy. But there were some tweets out there about sizes of the rosters of the college baseball.
Yeah. It was like 190 something, right?
Was like the average weight.
Yeah,
and I think there were like 5 total kids, and only one of them got any real amount of playing time who were under 170 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, these are grown men.
Yeah. So to whatever degree, playing 5 games or 6 games or 7 games in a weekend might inhibit your ability to accumulate a caloric surplus, maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
But I digress. So the game's basically over. The Yankees are just trying to get out of here, right? So they roll Oswaldo Cabrera out on the mound. 12 pitches.
Okay.
3 strikes.
Sure.
It was just hilarious to watch because the Dodger hitters are like, bro, we want to leave too.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to get this game over. They are like literally just trying to do anything they can in their power to help this kid out. And he can't find it with the broadside of a barn. And he's not really, he's throwing, 55, 60 mile an hour ephus pitches. He's not really trying to, because that kid can throw harder than that.
Yes.
But he's not burning, he's not burning any of his throwing workload either.
There's no shot he did J Bands Playos.
No.
Or any kind of
whatsoever.
like real warm up. Right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, go to the mound and just lob balls. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, look, we can have this conversation about the configuration of the MLB game in the current state and whether it is a good look for teams to just roll over and not want to wear out their bullpens and throw position players out there, etc. I get it. But I will make the point that this guy is one of like the 0.0002% of the population that plays Major League Baseball right now. 12 pitches, 3 strikes. So when your kids might walk a kid or two, like, get over yourself. It ain't that easy.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Example, what day is it? Today's Monday. Saturday, we played a team and it was 18-3. We were putting it on them. And they threw the equivalent of a major league position player on the mound, right? Yeah. Like, clearly a kid who had never pitched before.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're out of arms.
Yeah.
They could have forfeited and gone to the umpires. They didn't. We're out of arms. We're going to throw this kid, give him a shot. And we struggled.
Yeah.
Like, he pitched 2 innings, I think, and we put up 5 on him in 1 inning. But like they
were
first
kind of
inning,
bleeders though too.
Yeah, because like my kids were so rattled that he was just like lobbing them.
Yeah,
and like there was no attempt at velocity. There was no real attempt at accuracy.
Yeah, and
it was just like, I'm going to stand up here and lob him. And he actually was like not throwing strikes. Like they were around the zone. Like he wasn't walking a ton of guys. And we just like kept trying to take the biggest hacks possible and kept popping up or rolling over because like the timing is such a big deal when you're hitting and you go from a guy who is, they had a couple imports, if you will.
Sure.
And they were throwing pretty hard. Like they were mid, we didn't have radar, but my iSoto says like mid to upper 7s, right? Yeah. And like then you drop from like a mid to upper sevens to now you got a guy throwing for like 53. And yeah, we're like the timing's all out of whack. And like the first inning for sure, like he's making us look stupid.
Yeah.
And they're in the dugout like, why can't we hit this guy? And I'm like, guys, you've watched games when major league position players come in to relieve and they don't get hit around.
Yeah.
Like by and large, they get out of those innings.
Yeah.
Like they're not giving up 10 runs in an inning when they kind of should.
Yeah. Like, and every once in a while you will see, you know, somebody just throws a meatball to Vladdy and like he just deposits it
Right.
like in the 7th deck or
Right.
whatever. But, you know, again, consider the problem, right? To your point, timing is huge.
Right.
Why is that a thing? Well, because a lot of these kids and a lot of players, period, don't have the strength to like hold that loaded position,
Right.
hold and hold and hold and hold and hold, and then finally go.
Right. And in every situation where that happens, the game is over. So it's also hard to get the adrenaline and like the competitiveness going because the game is over. This is literally a white flag standing right in front of us. Yeah. So it's like there's that element of it too. But yeah, it happened to us this weekend. It was just like position player came in throwing and it was just like, oh yeah, that we had scored 18 runs and now this guy's off of their good pitchers and now this guy's making us kind of look stupid.
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes throwing strikes is hard. If you doubt that, you just go get on the bump for your kids like 12U practice and see how accurate you are at throwing like good
see how
BP.
accurate you are. And encourage your kids from the dugout to yell just those strikes.
Yeah. See if that coaches you up a little bit. They said the magic words. You should be able to do the thing.
Those strikes.
We should talk about the JUCO. We'll talk about JUCO in the portal next time. I think that's a good one to get into. If you've made it this deep on the pod that we are 3 minutes away from having to get to our next meeting at, we're running evals for Washington teams right now. Support at drivelinebaseball.com or 425-53-4030 or go to Driveline Youth on Instagram and you can see the ad that we have up for there right now. It's got the QR code. You can link. You can sign up for an individual sign up. I will add that to housekeeping for next episode. What else?
Come get a Flex snapshot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we got Flex. Hey, you like your current team and you want to train with Driveline? We have a thing for you. It's Driveline Academy Flex. You join in. You get access to our stuff. You get all the training programs. You get meeting with our guys, test, retest in the gym, hitting in the gym, camps, stuff like that in the gym, guest play opportunities.
You just want to come check out the facility because it's really cool.
Yeah. And
see where your kid stacks up. And like what deficiencies he has or she has and are trying to work on, come on and get an assessment.
Yeah.
Come here and get your snapshot. We'll give you all the information of what they need to work on. And if you want to get to work on it, that's when Flex comes into the plan. Yep. But like, even if you just want to kind of get an idea of like, is this a thing you should start taking more seriously? Or like, you know, you're on the cusp of it because I understand, especially like the younger the kid is and the more sports they might be playing, they don't want to commit fully to one thing. So just come in and get an assessment and see where you're at and if it's maybe time to start to take this a little bit more seriously and get some more specialized, individualized training and skill-specific training.
Yeah, and we got kids in this program that we just started this, you know, less than 2 months-ish ago. Mm-hmm. Kids are getting better. Hunter Doss, one of our Academy Flex kids, PR'd at 95. Came in here with exit velocity of 92-ish.
Yeah, he was one of the first people to ever do our snapshot.
Yep.
Because he signed up for the very first weekend and hit, I think it was like 92.5 or somewhere around there, and did it his second retest this past weekend, and hit 95.
Yep.
So that's a pretty solid gain in a month.
Yeah. Success leaves clues, etc., etc. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
I am Devin. He is Jeremy. We are Down by Law. We'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.